I don't believe my mom's excuse for bailing on me while I was in labor. I recently gave birth to my second child. My parents live 6 minutes from my husband and I, so our game plan was when I go into labor my parents would come and watch our first child while we were at the hospital. My dad is very involved with our daughter, 2 years old, but my mom often skips out on play dates and dinners I set up because she is too tired from work or doesn't feel up to it. For clarification, she works 6 to 8 HR days as a receptionist in a medical clinic. My parents were ecstatic to be able to watch her while I would be at the hospital because they would be the first ones to meet the new baby then. Well, I went into labor 2 weeks early on a Friday, and my dad was out of town for work and wouldn't be home till Sunday evening. I called my mom, and she said she would be there but had to run to Target first. She got to our house 2.5 hours later. I was freaking out because I went quickly with my first, and they said you go faster with the second. She got there, and when we laid out all the instructions and said we would probably be discharged late Sunday or early Monday, she was visibly surprised. She asked if we really thought it would be all weekend, and she would need to cancel plans. I asked then and there if we should bring my daughter with and call my in-laws to meet us at the hospital. My mom said it was fine and she would happily watch her. My in-laws are amazing with our daughter and are definitely the more involved grandparents, but they live farther away, 35-40-ish minutes, and my husband and I were worried it would take too long for them to get to our house. My mom called us early on Saturday morning, 5:30-ish, and said she had a headache and couldn't watch our toddler and asked us to call my in-laws to come get her. My husband called his parents, and they literally showed up in their PJs by 6:15 a.m. I called my older sister to vent about how unreliable our mom was and how I thought she faked a headache to get out of watching our daughter. My dad is the one that plays with her, gets meals ready, and does bedtime on the few occasions they have babysat her. I said she just wanted to get out of it because my dad wasn't there to actually do the work. For background, my mom used the headache excuse very often when I was growing up to get out of family things to have alone time at the house. Brothers' football games, church, visiting in-laws, etc. Well, my sister asked my dad if it was legit or if she was just trying to get out of it when she realized what a big commitment it was. My dad told my mom, and when my parents came to meet the new baby for the first time, she told me I was an asshole for thinking she would fake a headache to get out the responsibility. I can't shake the feeling that she lied about it, and I've taken a step back from including them with my family's events with the kids. I don't know if this is the right move or if this is me being petty. I'm tired of being the one to initiate all contact and visits with my mom and my kids when she don't make an effort to have a relationship with them on her own. Is it fair of me to pull back and stop being the one to initiate her seeing my kid? FAQ, my mom has no barriers to healthcare and have been asked by my dad, siblings, and I to be evaluated by a neurologist, and she has always refused, saying they aren't that bad. This is the first and only time I have ever asked my mother to babysit alone. In the 2 years of my daughter collective they have babysat, maybe 5 to 6 times, for 2 to 3 hours. This is not a regular request, and they are not common caretakers for my daughter by any means. My mom hasn't been a flake my entire life. This is more of a recent thing in the last few years. She was a good mom growing up and is now pretty indifferent. I can call her and she won't call me back, same with texts, so our relationship as mother-daughter is pretty low communication and I have accepted that. However, she regularly makes comments about how she doesn't get to see the kids or gets upset when my daughter won't hug her/kiss her when she asks. My husband and I have repeatedly told her that my daughter doesn't need to show affection if she doesn't want to, and my mom will continuously push for a hug or kiss. She very much so wants the credit for the doting grandma but without actually trying to build a relationship. I should have called my in-laws from the beginning when I knew my dad wouldn't be available, but I honestly had hoped she would step up given the situation. And y'all, I don't even know how to address the Target thing. I have no idea why that was necessary or why it took as long as it did. Comment. That was the point when they needed to call the other grandparents. Their 35 to 40-minute drive would be as fast as the trip to Target, and mom is definitely showing that she doesn't want to be bothered. She could easily have taken a toddler to Target if she needed to go and wanted to watch the child. It isn't like she could only do one or the other. I found that odd too. I had an uncomplicated vaginal birth for my second, but even then they still had me stay one night. About the 36-hour mark they asked if I wanted to leave, but are they really discharging mothers that early? I didn't think things had changed that much in the past 7 years. My mom fought with my brother over watching his son when their second was coming. She fought tooth and nail that fathers didn't need to be at the hospital with their wives. My mom insisted he could be at the hospital during the day and pick his son up from daycare at 5 and sleep at home. I asked her how they plan would even work. What if the baby was born after 5 p.m. and I got crickets? I told this story to my mother-in-law expecting empathy for me and my brother's point of view. I was bewildered when she strongly shared that she would never want her husband in the room with her giving birth. She wouldn't let him see that. Confused, I asked if her mom or sister were with her when she birthed her 3 kids then. Nope, of course not. Apparently you are supposed to give birth and risk death surrounded by whatever group of strangers is scheduled to work the hospital that night. I had both of mine on my own. My husband missed both births due to stand members sending him home to get some rest because it will be a while before anything happens. The first I went into active labor before an induction they had booked me in for the following day. It took 1 hour 40 minutes start to finish, and since hubby didn't drive and I gave birth at 3:20 in the morning, he hadn't made it in time. Second was induced labor. 54 hours in the gave me a cytokinin 4 and told hubby to go home cause it would take a while. He still didn't drive at that point, so he got the bus and got home by 55.5 hours in labor. At which point I was passed out with no one to voice my wants or stand up for me. I came around to them prepping me for surgery. Surprisingly, they hadn't tried anything else first. 3 pushes with a ventouse cap, aka kiwi cap, and he was out. It was only then I realized I was still alone in a sea of doctors, midwives, and healthcare staff. Yep. They sent him home at 10 p.m. as the last bus was getting there. Then my waters broke at 1:40 am. I called the midwife who, without entering the 3 birth room, that I was at the very end of, or pulling back the curtain, told me it was impossible for my waters to break because I hadn't been induced at that point. I can't remember how long it took me to actually get her to come look. When she finally did, she just said, "Your waters have gone." I was like, I know. Her next was, "You can't be in labor, there isn't a doctor spare and you need a doctor-led birth." My response made the other 2 women in the room laugh. I just said, "What do you want me to do, cross my fucking legs and hope he stays there until you find a DR?" She ran to get someone to help me into a birthing room and find some gas and air. Then, by the time that tank of gas and air was gone, the doctor was stitching me up. I gave birth on my own twice as well. First time my, now, ex went to go party BC. It was July 4th and he got so drunk he couldn't get to the hospital. Second time we broke up a month prior to my due date and he just wanted to stay home with our youngest. Looking back, I can't believe I did it by myself. Hospital staff was outstanding. Well, when I was born in the late 1970s, that was normal. The husband wasn't generally in the room. My dad was at work and didn't even know I'd been born because he was out on site and they couldn't reach him. They're basing it on their experience presumably. I work on a postnatal ward. Discharge is from 4 hours postnatal. Day 2 is standard for vaginal births and day 3 for cesareans. This is regardless of time of birth, so if you deliver 1 minute to midnight, you're already at day 2 once midnight passes. We then have our midwives visit you at home. Might sound harsh, but we don't have the capacity for longer and it's standard in my country. Story 2. I have an issue with my fiancé. I'm struggling with the decision to buy a house in my name or our names. My boyfriend/fiancé and I have been together for 5 years and have a child together. We recently decided to buy a home, but it's on the higher end of our budget. I'm the only one that qualifies, and he would not be able to for a while. We've agreed to move forward with the purchase of the home despite the higher price. I will be responsible for paying the entire loan and we will each have 50/50 ownership. We agreed beforehand that we would split the monthly payments. After we buy the house though, he will not be obligated to pay back the bank loan. As each day passes, I'm not sure of adding him as part owner, because he has very bad sending habits. Relationship background. Early in the relationship he helped fully support me for 8 months. When I went back to work, as a thank you, I bought him an OLED TV, a trip together, and gave him a large amount of money so his car would not get repossessed. The relationship between us started off great. However, a year later I found him talking and spending time with some other girl. He lied to me about it, and said they were just friends. I was ready to leave the relationship. And just as I made the decision to leave, I found out I was pregnant. 4 years later, the relationship is okay, but it feels like we are roommates. He and I still have money issues. He doesn't pay rent, bills, and we do not spend time with each other. He borrows money over and over and over again, promising to pay it back but comes up with excuses. However, he takes great care of our child. We adore our child more than anything and are very committed to raising him/her. We both say we are committed to remaining together, but our busy schedules make it difficult. I want to believe that he wants to commit and stay together. I'm just having a hard time believing that. Something inside is telling me not to go through with buying this house because I think he won't pay. Or maybe he'll pay at first, and little by little find ways not to. I could also be freaking out because I'm about to make a life-changing purchase, and getting cold feet. Or maybe this is one of those ups and downs couples go through, and we'll get to the other side this. I'm thinking about this constantly and now I can't make any decisions. How do I know if he is serious about getting this house with me? How common are my experiences compared to other relationships? Side note about the house we want to buy belongs to my fiancé's aunt. They have been on non-speaking terms for a while because of, money. His aunt and I still talked and offered to sell her house just to me. She specifically told me not to buy a house together, be independent and don't get stuck. She then told me not to end up like her sister is my fiancé mother. His parents live together but really can't stand each other. His dad can't work, and his mom needs to work and can't retire anytime soon, ever though she can. They both own a house together. She wants to sell but her husband doesn't want to sell. So now a few days after I received the pre-approval letter for the loan, my fiancé has a change of heart and wants to make amends with his aunt. Now she wants to sell the house to both of us. I'm feeling a déjà vu moment here. Comment. Have a backup plan. Buy the house, have the house and mortgage in your name only and write up a renter's contract with your fiancé so if he doesn't pay or you break up you can evict him and rent his space out to a paying roommate while you keep the house. Or listen to your gut feeling and keep the guy at arm's length. Have a respectful co-parenting relationship and do not allow him to take money out of your family's mouth. He honestly sounds like a liability and a high-risk, low-return investment. She is also uncomfortable with the cost of this house. Time to move on and find a house that is cheaper. She knows she will be paying on her own so she needs to buy what she can comfortably afford on her own. Then buy it on her own in her name only. I completely agree with the at these interest rates comment, but I will say, speaking from the experience of working the corporate end of a real estate company, the mortgage guys all say marry the home, date the interest rate. She could always refinance when rates go down in a few years. For other reasons, OP should definitely take a pass on this house, though. Great advice and be sure your local laws allow for tenancy agreements like this. Where I live, rental protection/evictions processes don't apply to those sharing a bathroom/kitchen with the LL. You can get stuck in no man's land where rental courts can't help, yet the police see it as a tenancy matter and often refuse to get involved in. I wonder about the legal implications of owning a house at all with regard to common law marriage laws. In some states, like Texas, 2 years of cohabitation qualifies as common law's married. In such cases, I wonder if common law marriage implies the same legal constraints when it comes to assets acquired during the marriage. In Texas, I would not do this. He cheated in the past, sure. But a more obvious indicator that he won't split the mortgage is that he doesn't pay rent or bills now. Be for real. You would be dumb to put that man's name on the house when you know exactly how he is with money. This is nonsensical. Exactly. It should be in OP's name only since she's the only one on the loan. And she should take on a loan assuming she'll be paying the full mortgage payments. Guy rents from her and provided he makes good on all rent payments gets his name added to the house. If she needs to sell before that, he gets an agreed upon percentage of the sale relative to what he contributed.